behind this stuff, so I don't know exactly how that shakes out, but typically it has a lot to do with how they're focused now. With the other bed baker, they have the kind of angle, but they're those kind of flat looking fixtures, and they're all LEDs that are shielded up on the underside, so it does do a nice job of, you can't see the actual light source itself, and they do tend to focus light a little bit better on the interior of the site because they're directed in that way.
That's the lights they're proposing to use again, right?
So we don't have, actually, yeah, we do have cut sheets. I think these are the same, Kyle. Can you confirm that? Are these the same?
I believe they are.
Okay. They look like it. So if you can, I mean, I can, if you like what's at the other bed and baker, I can certainly ask them to submit just like a cut sheet of the model, and I can verify that it's the same thing. And I still have the old files that we can take a look at.
To me, it's pretty high praise when Chris chimes in and, likes that light.
Yeah.
So to me, that's fine, just duplicate it.
Yeah. Well, and
astronomer chimes in and is
Yeah.
complaining about the light.
well, and frankly, for so many auto dealerships have lights that are really, really bright. So if they can design that in a way that the community is happy with, I think that would be a good thing for everybody involved.
It sounds like they did it once, and pretty sure they can.
Yeah, we've been very satisfied with the lighting we have in our current facility. It was basically to duplicate it. The current lights are old style and face off, and we did it.
So parking, so obviously, when you count all the inventory area for cars into the parking calculation, they're overparked by a lot. They've got 247 spaces, which is way more than they would need per the ordinance. So, again, I'm, knowing that this all isn't for customer and employee parking, I don't have any issues with the parking and how it's arranged. The ordinance requires one loading and unloading space, so I don't know if there's a specific plan for loading. Is it going to be behind the building, or if there's a spot that should be designated on the plan to indicate where trucks would be unloaded or parts vehicles would be unloaded? That would be something to illustrate on the site plan.
Charlie, you indicated it comes 11 to 3 in the morning or something along that line.
Yeah.
Where does it go?
The parts department will be located on the east side of the building. So basically, there'll be a straight shot in, unload. They come in these metal racks kind of thing, cages, if you will. Typically, our side of the dealership will get 3-4 of them. They unload those, and they make a circle. And, they would basically back up around and go back.
As for cars, you're unloading on the opposite side of the road?
Yes, yeah. So we'll continue to use the north side of Pleasant along the current building there. That's a bigger area. We have a big turnaround area back there for the carriers to turn around, so they're not unloading in Main Street and that type of thing.
And then you're taking the tunnel down over to the south side?
Absolutely.
Railroad tracks.
By giving us a bigger building on the south side of the street, we should be able to alleviate a lot of foot traffic going across, because currently, if you buy a car on the south side, you got to go across the north side to sign paperwork. The new facility will have somebody there. And often we'll have enough spaces where I actually have a person stay there, go in that office, and the customers won't be traveling back and forth across the street. Believe me, that's a safety concern of ours as much as it is your guys'.
So you're trying to eliminate fraud or?
Yeah, it's ain't none of us getting as young as we used to be, so there's more challenges.
Commissioners, are you done? I'm sorry.
No, the only other topic is signage, and so.
No, I mean parking.
Oh, yeah, I'm good with parking.
Okay. Commissioners, any questions on parking beyond what we just talked about? Okay. Public, any questions? Okay, let's go to signage.
Okay, last topic is signage. So just, we don't have details on that yet. They have an existing sign on the property. The ordinance allows them to have 50 square feet on the building and 50 square feet of a pole or ground sign, which is their choice. I'm assuming they'll go with a pole sign probably for visibility's sake. That can be addressed as a condition of approval as well.
Charlie, has there been any thought how many dealerships, or how many models are you going to have there?
So we just picked up the Buick franchise. So Buick and GMC are sister brands. So basically the thought process is the current sign that's on the south side of the street says something about pre-owned used cars. changing that out to represent new cars. And the sign that's on the north side of the street currently represents basically the new car franchise, and switching it into a used car signage. The additional signage that we'll be looking for will be, the logos on the front of the building demonstrating Ben Baker. And-
Similar to what your other dealership has?
Yes, yes, yeah, very similar.
And those are all in compliance, I'm assuming?
Yes, so, and we'll work with them on making sure that the sizing is right, and that's really the only issue that is ever potentially, comes into debate when we're doing these types of projects with developers, is that, making sure the size of the sign meets that 50 square foot standard, because that is, it's more restrictive than some, not everybody, but, so we get some pushback on that sometimes, but we'll work with them to make sure that they're in compliance with the wall signs on the building. If they're just switching out the face of the pole sign, then we probably won't have any concerns with that. But that's not a very big sign anyways.
Any other questions then on signage? Okay, site plan review standards. Andy, you want to walk us through this? And I think there is through F. Let's go through the entire batch and then we'll vote on those. Okay, commissioners? Like we have in the past?
Okay, so standard A, the uses proposed will not adversely affect the public health, safety, or welfare. Uses and structures located on the site shall be planned to take into account topography, size of the property, uses on adjoining property, relationship of buildings to the site. The site shall be developed so as not to impede the orderly and normal development of surrounding property for uses permitted. So again, we're talking about the reuse of an existing facility here. I mean, I think overall this is an improvement to the site. It's a little bit of a, increase in the just scale of the operation, so it's going to take up more space. It'll be a little bit more intense, I think, than what is there presently, just in terms of the, the physical size of the site, the number of cars on the site, et cetera. So I think, through some of the landscaping discussion and lighting discussion that you had earlier, there are certainly possibly some impacts on adjacent residents that we've kind of talked through here. So our comment here was that, you should discuss landscaping and whether or not that'll adequately buffer the use from adjacent residential districts. I think you've done that. So if you're comfortable with the landscaping, I would think that you could consider that standard to be met. Item B states that safe, convenient, uncongested, and well-defined vehicular and pedestrian circulation shall be provided for ingress and egress points and within the site. The drive streets and other circulation routes shall be designed to promote safe and efficient traffic operations. So again, this is another point of improvement here. We're pleased with the improvement along Main Street and along Pleasant Street for pedestrians. Having defined driveways will make it a lot easier for people and non-customers, frankly. There's walking along Pleasant Street, walking along Main Street. It's a lot less scary when you know exactly where the driveways are and you can kind of pay more attention in those areas. So I think overall it's an improvement to safety. Obviously, if you don't have customers crossing Main Street, to sign paperwork, that's also substantially improves the overall safety situation on the site. With some of the other developments on Main Street, you've required like a sidewalk kind of marking or extension across the parking lot to get into the front entrance of the building. This is such an auto-intensive use, I don't think that's probably necessary here, but in order to be consistent, I guess I'm pointing it out again for your consideration. I don't think it's necessary personally. And so, subject to any comments from MDOT, I think that the Planning Commission may find that that standard is also met. Item C, the arrangement of public or private vehicular and pedestrian connections to existing or planned streets in the area shall provide a safe and efficient circulation system for traffic within the city. So we talked about that a little bit already. I think both the vehicular and pedestrian connections and circulation routes are an overall improvement here. Item D, removal or alteration of significant natural features shall be restricted to those areas which are reasonably necessary to develop the site in accordance with the requirements of this ordinance. Landscaping, buffers, and green belts shall be continuously maintained to ensure that those uses will be adequately buffered from one another. So there is, as we talked about, the removal of some trees, particularly along the southern and eastern parts of the property. There's all of the development work is proposed outside of the floodplain. There's a little floodplain that kind of hits the corner of the site, but there's nothing that it would be occupied by a building. So again, there is going to be an increase in impervious surface on this property, and the city will review the drainage information provided and make sure that it's compliant with the city's standards. Item E.
Same with the city engineer for comments regarding the impacts on the creek.
Correct.
Is that part of the conditions that we do?
Yes, so we do have, and we'll go through these in a minute, but we always have conditions where city engineer and other staff, everyone gets a copy of this.
Drain conditions.
Already, yep. So the city uses the drain commissioner standards for stormwater, and so that's what we apply when we take a look at it.
Thank you.
Item E, satisfactory assurance shall be provided that the requirements of all other applicable ordinances, codes, and requirements of the city shall be met, which could be addressed as a condition of approval. And then item F, the general purposes and the spirit of this or comprehensive plan of the city shall be maintained. The purpose of the C3 district is to permit a mixture of residential, office, and commercial uses. This district offers more auto-oriented uses that would not always be compatible with residential uses, but uses in the C3 district are intended to serve Main Street traffic. And so through the previous discussion we had related to the master plan and looking at how the area is zoned, I think that this is generally consistent with the purposes of the ordinance and with the city's master plan.
Thank you, Andy. Commissioners, anything on the site plan review standards? Any questions at all? General public, any questions at all? Then do I have a proposal to accept or I'll make the proposal to accept the site plan review standards A through F as commented. Is there a second?
I'll support.
And discussion? Sue, roll call, please.
Commissioner Cadwalder,
Yes.
Commissioner Chambers,
Yes.
Commissioner Ellis,
Yes.
Commissioner Padula,
Yes.
Commissioner Plank,
Yes.
Commissioner Schrappen,
Yes.
and Chair Barker.
Yes. Special land use review standards. Andy? And again, I think this goes through,
Yes.
let's do them again.
Okay. So these standards pertain to, so the first set of standards we're primarily looking at the site circulation, how it's arranged, organized, and everything. The special land use standards, we're looking at the land use itself. So item A, the proposed special land use shall be designed, constructed, operated, and maintained so as to be harmonious and appropriate in adherence with the existing or intended character of the general vicinity, and such that use will not change the essential character of the area in which it is proposed. So the use is more or less staying the same. It's going to get a little bit bigger and a little bit more intense, as I mentioned, which is why we're going through this special land use process. One larger building is proposed to replace two existing buildings, which are, they're showing their age, let's say. So I do think that this will be an overall improvement to the area. Site access, as we talked about, is improved. Landscaping is improved. And so I think, subject to, the kind of ongoing good neighborly types of things they've been doing, I think that the standard would be met and provided the landscaping is installed and maintained in accordance with the standards. Item B, the proposed special land use shall be consistent with the city's master plan. We've talked about that. Short answer, it is consistent with the master plan in our view. Item C, the proposed special land use shall be served adequately by essential public facilities and services such as highways, streets, police, fire, drainage, refuse, water, and sewage. Site is currently, in the middle of town, served by the police and fire departments. The reconstruction will enhance access, and I think it'll help, mitigate some potential negative issues on Main Street with the closure of those two curb cuts there. The utility grading plans will be reviewed by city staff, and then again, all of this stuff gets circulated throughout the city after approval, if you choose to approve it, to make sure that, fire department, light and power, and all those other city agencies have had a chance to take a look at it and offer comments. Item D, the proposed special land use should not create excessive additional requirements of public cost for public facilities or services. We don't anticipate that to be an issue here. Again, the use is substantially similar to what's there, it's just a little bit more intense than what's going on presently, so we do not have any specific concerns about that at this time. Item E, the proposed special land use shall not involve uses, activities, processes, materials, and equipment or conditions of operation that will be detrimental to a person's property or the general welfare by excessive production of traffic, noise, smoke, fumes, glare, or odors. Again, I think potentially the only one of those that could be excessive would be glare from the light. We've talked about that. So, subject to the review and acceptance of the lighting plan shown with the application, I think they've done a pretty good job of keeping the light to the inside of the property. And we're happy to hear, frankly, that everybody is so pleased with how the lighting turned out at the other location. So again, if that can be replicated, I think they'll be good. And again, because they're just graduating to more modern fixtures, modern technology, and all of that, if it's directed in an appropriate way, I think there'll be an improvement over what is there presently. And the last standard is that the proposed special land use shall comply with all applicable federal, state, and local requirements, and copies of all applicable permits shall be submitted to the city. And that's a standard condition of approval that we put on everything that comes through these offices.
Thank you, Andy. Special land use review standards, A through F. Commissioners, any questions, discussion at all? General public, any questions, concerns? Then I would entertain a motion for the special land use review standards to be accepted.
I'll make that motion.
And is there a second?
I'll second.
And discussion? Sue, voice vote, please.
Commissioner Cadwalder,
Yes.
Commissioner Chambers,
Yes.
Commissioner Ellis,
Yes.
Commissioner Gadula,
Yes.
Commissioner Plank,
Yes.
Commissioner Schraven,
Yes.
and Chair Barker.
Yes. Open air business special land use standards, and this goes A through I. I think though we can do them all together again.
Yeah, I think so. So what these are is, the last set of standards are they apply generally to all special land uses in the city, no matter what they are. This set of standards applies only to open air business. And so these are contained within these special land use standards. So just real quick, A requires a minimum lot area of 1 acre, minimum width of 200 feet as required. Item B, you can meet both of those. C allows the planning commission to require a 6-foot fence or wall to be constructed along the rear and or sides of the lot. That's been required. Item D, open air businesses shall comply with city and county regulations regarding sanitation and health conditions. That can be addressed as a condition of approval. Item E,
Andy, there we need to make sure that dumpster is enclosed.
yeah, I think the site plan shows that. So we can certainly require so typically, you require like a 6-foot, like a shadow box fence or something on 3 sides around the dumpster with a lockable gate on the 4th,
That's what we normally do, correct?
or masonry wall or something. Sometimes, the only other thing that you might want to consider sometimes, like what gets proposed is just a 6-foot chain link that has the vertical slats in it. This is my personal opinion. I don't like the look of those as much as like a dog ear fence or a shadow box style fence, but that's my unsolicited opinion.
If you're already putting the fence all the way across, it seems like it's right back against the property line.
Yeah, but the dumpster itself, to keep the debris within a confined area, and also noise control and all those kinds of things.
So it's right there, so they like put it 2 more sides of it.
Yeah, well, I don't know, but it's, I think what we can say is that we want the dumpster screened and fenced to mitigate the impacts of the adjacent properties.
With matching material in the rear.
I don't care about that.
What they do on the other one?
I think it's the man of the hour, we can ask him.
Yeah. Apologize. The potty call.
We're talking dumpsters.
Yes.
What'd you do on your last one?
It's currently sitting on the south, kind of western corner.
Fence around it?
Not currently.
Not currently.
It's on a cement pad.
Interesting. Interesting. What do we normally do?
Most of them you require a 6-foot fence around them That was kind of in a, yeah, I mean, that was in a, it's kind of an odd spot, it's in the
The
middle.
fence, this
kind
one
of corner.
almost backs right up to the fence, so maybe that's,
Yeah, I mean, there's a, because on the other side, there's kind of a little notch where the, along the, and so we had them kind of tuck it right in there, so it's about as far as you could get from any other houses, and there's a fence right there, so that might have gone into, I don't remember the exact discussion we had, but it could have been just that because it's so close, it's as far as possible from other houses, and there's a fence right there that you were comfortable with not having, but I don't recall specifically.
I think we do the 6-foot fence. On 3 sides and the opening locked, I assume. Thanks.
So if we just require a 6-foot tall dumpster enclosure on 3 sides with walkable gate on the 4th side?
Correct.
Everyone's comfortable with that, you don't want to specify materials?
No,
Okay.
I,
Okay.
want somebody, anybody else, Karen? No, okay.
Okay, last couple standards here. Let's see, so item E, the lot area for use for parking display or storage area shall be provided with a permanent paved surface, graded and drained, so as to dispose of all surface water. That's been addressed, pending acceptance by engineering staff. Item F, ingress and egress shall be provided as far as practicable from 2 intersecting streets and shall be at least 50 feet from the intersection. So we talked about the one to the north is probably less than 50 feet from Main Street, it's close. But again, you know, given the layout of the site and the overall improvement here, it sounded like you were inclined to accept that as is. Item G, all lighting shall be shielded from adjacent residential districts or uses, which we discussed. H does not apply. Then I, no display area shall be located within 20 feet of a street right-of-way line. And you know, aside from the parking areas, we don't have any display areas shown on the site plan, so that standard generally does also not apply.
Thank you, Andy. Special land use reviews, no, I'm sorry. Open air business special land use standards, A through I. Do I have a motion to accept the open air business special land use standards?
I'll make a motion to accept it.
And second? And discussion? General public, any discussion? Hearing none, Sue, would you give us a voice vote?
Commissioner Cadwalder,
Yes.
Commissioner Chambers,
Yes.
Commissioner Ellis,
Yes.
Commissioner Gadula,
Yes.
Commissioner Plank,
Yes.
Commissioner Schraven,
Yes.
and Chair Barker.
Yes. Andy, your recommendation?
Okay, so we do have a recommendation of approval. We have proposed, in our staff report, we proposed 14 standards. We have added 2 more. Standards 15 and 16. Standard 15, the applicant shall install a 6-foot privacy fence along the southern boundary line starting at a point 30 feet west of the Pleasant Street right-of-way. I guess it's 30 feet east of the Pleasant Street right-of-way along the northerly side lot line of 131 Pleasant, and then continuing along the southern boundary of the property. Every effort will be made to maintain the existing trees along the southern eastern boundary of the property. And then condition 16 is to add a 6-foot enclosure with a lockable gate around the dumpster.
And correct me if I'm wrong here, all of this is contingent upon the city council approving the rezoning request.
Correct, so we should have in here somewhere, unless I missed it. So yes, we should also add, if it's not in here, that the site plan and special land use approval is contingent upon the rezoning of those properties to C3 becoming effective. And that occurs approximately 2 weeks after approval by council, because it has to be published in the paper, then you gotta wait a week, and then it becomes effective at that point. So it would be about 2 weeks or so after council meeting is when the rezoning would become effective.
That'll probably come up for us next Monday.
Probably, I guess, I would
Yeah,
prefer to
that's
make
it.
it 2
Well, I
hours,
can't.
so.
Just get the ball rolling for them.
Right.
See why I can't.
So, in effect, what we're doing here is doing the site plan and special land use. Okay.
Correct. So you've already recommended approval of the rezoning, so a motion, somebody inclined to make one to approve the site plan and special land use with those conditions would be appropriate.
And do I have such a motion?
Oh, I'll make that motion.
Okay. And do we have a second?
I can second.
And do we have any discussion? Sue?
Commissioner
Voice vote.
Cadwalder,
Yes.
Commissioner Chambers,
Yes.
Commissioner Ellis.
Yes.
Commissioner Padula,
Yes.
Commissioner Plank,
Yes.
Commissioner Schraven,
Yes.
and Chair Barker.
Yes. Congratulations, Benton Baker, you have your, at least your site plan and special land use okay. Now, if the city council will go through and do the rezoning request, you'll be up and running here before summer. Thank you.
We thank you for your time.
Thank you.
We appreciate it. Looking forward to it.
Our other item of new business is also a public hearing. It's an amendment to section 17.04 FF5B of the city zoning ordinance. Andy, do you want to run us through that, please?
Yes, so just to provide a brief overview, this is an amendment to the zoning ordinance that relates to the adult use marijuana establishments. And so the issue is here on the east side of the Flat River, there are a handful of properties that are zone C3. They're, in my view, not good locations for this type of use. And previously, we had been able to, or there was a daycare in this area. And so that in and of itself precluded the establishment of an adult use marijuana facility on any of these properties. So it's my understanding that that use doesn't exist anymore. And so that then makes these areas eligible for an adult use marijuana facility. Now, in my opinion, they're completely surrounded on all sides by residential uses. They're kind of these little spots of commercial zoning on East Main. And so to me, having, when we drafted the adult use marijuana standards, the general thought was let's keep it to the west side of town, west of the railroad tracks, generally speaking. And so this is an amendment that would ensure that that happens, basically. And so I think it's an attempt to kind of further guide this type of development to the part of the city where it's most appropriate and most desired, given the surrounding land uses and everything else going on. So that's the short version of it. And so it's a real simple amendment. I mean, section 1 is really all there is to it. This just adds the language here. So this section 1704 FF5B that it's amending, this is the part of the ordinance where it says not within 1,000 feet of a school or daycare, not within 500 feet of C3, and then we would just add an item 4 that would say not on any property east of the Flat River.
Just to add too, I did give you all a copy of a legal opinion done by Jessica Wood and Tom Forshee from Dickinson Wright. Mainly the concern is just to make sure that this isn't going to be deemed as a taking or if there's going to be any legal claims against the city. Now, in short, there's always the risk of any type of potential lawsuit against the city when you make an amendment like this. That being said, the question of whether or not it would actually hold up in court. The opinion that you have in front of you pretty much states that we believe that this amendment, the city is within their legal right to do this, and that there isn't any grounds for anyone to claim an unauthorized takings or inverse condemnation or anything like that. We did give that to your review.
Thank you. Commissioners, any other questions of Mike, Andy, or thoughts on the matter?
I just have one sort of related, but sort of not, since we're looking at reviewing at least a section of this agreement, since we've got a year or more under our belts of having these applications come to us. is there anything else within the marijuana zoning that we should be looking at? You know, with our, again, your knowledge, that should be changed, reviewed, that type of thing?
You know, not that immediately comes to mind. It seems like, from my perspective anyways, that the ordinances work pretty well. Applicants have complied with it. I'm not aware of any major problems that we've had, you know, dealing with violations. I haven't heard of a ton of complaints. There's been, you know, some minor discussions about hours and stuff like that, but generally, none of that is handled in zoning. So I don't, at this point, see a need unless you wanted to get way more restrictive in terms of, you know, where they go or how the site is designed or something like that. I don't know of any additional, you know, major adjustments that I would make at this point. Maybe I'm just thinking up. There is one on the regulatory act. Actually, council's going to be looking at it probably at their next meeting. We do not allow, in our ordinance specifically does not allow for consumption in any facility of marijuana. However, I have been getting requests for designated consumption rooms, open air events, and while our ordinance does not allow for consumption on site, it somewhat defers to the MRTMA standards pertaining to these types of facilities. It doesn't say that they allow them, but it doesn't necessarily say they don't. And there's going to have to be some language cleanup, I think, at council level. It's really not your issue at planning commission. It's really a council issue. Now, the only other thing you could consider, I'll be honest, I probably wouldn't recommend this, but you could, for any new facilities that you approve, you could put a buffer in place, like 500 feet or 1,000 feet from another facility. You could do that. I don't necessarily think that is a need at this point, and it's not something I would honestly recommend, but you could. But that's really, I mean, our ordinance, I mean, like Andy said, we've had minimal issues pertaining to these facilities.
What is the buffer you're talking about?
So you could technically restrict facilities. One of the things you do not want to do is put a cap on the number of facilities, because that is subject to litigation. One of the things you could do is you could buffer them. So any new facility, yeah, correct, any new facility, you could do that. But anything that's in place that you already approved, that they're grandfathered in, that's something that the planning commission and the council could do. I mean, you may want to do that. I would caution against that right now. Maybe down the road you might want to consider that, and that's fine. I haven't seen that as an issue to right now where you really need to consider it at this time.
Can the council do that?
Yes, they can. If they wanted that, they could. If they wanted that, they could bring it back to planning commission, because it would start at the planning commission for a zoning amendment.
Yeah, that would be an issue that would be dealt with in zoning.
Yep.
As opposed to some of the other, like, hours of operation or something, or stuff that gets handled under the operational business aspect of it, and that's all the council's ordinance. So,
Correct.
some kind of isolation radius, you know, and again, I'm not advocating either way, but that would have to, you know, start here with the planning commission public hearing. And it's something that, you know, I would, you know, if you did it, we want to make sure, you know, I wouldn't want to create a bunch of non-conforming uses just by doing that. So we'd want to make sure that you're accomplishing whatever that objective would be while minimizing any non-conformities that you might have by doing that. So if you already have a couple that are 500 feet, well, they're non-conforming in front of them. I don't know, burns down or something, then they might not be able to rebuild, and you'd have a potentially, you know, an issue on your hands. So we have to look at all those factors.
So if one of them goes out in smoke,
Well, so it's just sort of like, you know, all I get is anecdotal talk about people being pissed that we now have 8 or whatever pot shops and people are tired and so on, but I don't really know what the public thinks. I know what, you know, like my wife thinks. But I don't know, the only advantage I see, the only reason I would see going down the buffer route would be if you felt like you wanted to try to, you know, for political reasons, try to, you know, make people a little happier or give the public confidence that like
Not every store is gonna be.
you're hearing the complaint that there's too many coming in and you're like taking some kind of steps to mitigate it. But I don't really know, I mean, like, I don't know, that's what I hear. I don't really know what a poll of the public would say. Maybe
Yeah.
people don't care, I don't know.
And I wouldn't necessarily gauge any type of poll because it'd be very difficult to, you know, because you'd be getting people from the township who don't vote or pay taxes in that poll, so I'd caution that. I think really what probably would have to drive it is there would have to be interest from the city council to want us to consider moving it at this time. At this time, I'm not aware of the council interested in moving that. What I hate to do is put something in front of you and ultimately you take it through the zoning process and then you know, and then planning commission makes a recommendation and then council says, no, we're not gonna do it. In this issue, I know I've had individual conversations and based on my individual conversations with the council members, we believe this was a situation where we could start that process and see where it plays out, but I wouldn't just be doing it because, you know, either Andy or I thought it was a good idea or not. It's there, and, you know, obviously we don't round robin. I'm not going to tell you my conversations with council members, just like I'm not going to tell the other council members what another council member said. But there was, in this issue, I think there was some concern about it. But on the issue of buffering, I think that just hasn't really been brought to my attention. And I talk to the council pretty regularly, individually, on issues. So
I would think that the amount of individual pot stores going in is going to decline substantially. I mean, saturation is, I think we're saturated.
I don't disagree.
I think this loophole or this border, I think, is a back way to stop more from coming in.
Yeah, I don't disagree. I would say that, I mean, what I don't want the government to be doing is dictating a free market, but on the other hand, the free market's starting to gauge itself. I mean, it's going to saturate itself to the point where, I'll be honest with you, I think some of the ones we've already approved may never even come into fruition. I drive past a couple of the ones you approved, and I mean, one of them, there's been nothing. The other one has just started, and that one was approved last year. That one I do believe will probably open before September 30th, because I asked them if they're going to, the biggest question I asked them is if they're going to be open by September 30th, because that plays a role into the revenue the city would receive from the excise tax. So I know one of the ones that I was concerned about, they do plan on opening before September 30th, but the other one, I've literally seen no movement. Well, two of the facilities, come to think, there's been no movement whatsoever.
Get new buildings.
And landscaping.
Thank you for the kind of deferring to another topic. But
That answer.
yes, but that did, no, yes, that did answer my question, so thank you.
Thanks for raising it. In that case, then, do we have a motion to propose the adult use marijuana zoning amendment?
Before we do that, Mr. Chairman, I know there's nobody here, but for the record, this is a public hearing, so you should open and close the public hearing.
I did open it already, but I will close it because nobody is here and nobody's on screen. So I think we're done. Okay?
Thank you.
And then I would entertain a motion for the proposed adult use marijuana zoning amendment.
I make a motion to support that.
And do we have a second?
Second.
And further discussion? Sue, voice vote, please.
Commissioner Cadwalder,
Yes.
Commissioner Chambers,
Yes.
Commissioner Ellis,
Yes.
Commissioner Gadula,
Yes.
Commissioner Plank,
Yes.
Commissioner Schraven,
Yes,
and Chair Barker.
Yes. That brings us to staff report. Sue, anything?
No, I have nothing.
Mike, anything?
We did take a, speaking of of adult use marijuana. We did take another application today for 126 West Street. So Andy, Susie, and I met with them, so we anticipate you'll probably have something at the next meeting.
I have two more at the next meeting, I think.
We do?
23
Yes.
something was made.
2389 for Galaxy signs.
Oh, that's right, I forgot about that.
Yeah.
So they're still coming.
I don't get it, but.
Yeah, so I mean, getting back to Mike's point, I agree that, you know, at some point, all these might not happen, but they're still applying.
Well, especially because you're getting, you know, Cedar Springs opened up another one. Ionia just, there's building one just as you're going into Ionia now. I'm assuming that's gonna open fairly shortly because it's almost constructed, so.
I believe there's a couple in Berry County.
Yeah, so and Grand Rapids is now coming on by tens at a time, so it's going to be,
Gonna be saturated.
well, you would think so, you know. I mean, you would have thought that with liquor stores too, once upon a time, or, you know, wineries once upon a time, and it's,
Well, it's kind of true though. It's not like we're not gonna get.
So as our population, getting a little saturated.
Yeah,
Yeah.
there's not 30 Lowell beer stores on the
Yeah.
street.
well, no.
Well, I mean, the one difference is that the marijuana establishments aren't permitted in most of the townships.
Right.
Right, so I mean, you do have a little bit of a forced demand here because you permit them, a lot of the surrounding areas don't.
Right.
But that said, I agree in general with the principle, just a lot of them.
Commissioner Andy, do you have anything extra?
No.
Commissioners, Michael?
Good, good. I'm good.
Oh. Marty?
It's nice doing this.
Yes. Yes. Tony?
The alternative we will apparently have next month.
Yep.
We'll be back at
I
it.
got a question, a general question about maintenance or upkeep of the river. I mean, is there a scheduled dredging or, I mean, the growth in that is quite a bit and the use of it is going to be.
Are you talking about in the river or?
Or right out here, where there's a boat launch and, I mean. is
Yeah,
there-
some of those areas are no-mow areas, so they do have to, but they do go in and thin it out. I've already talked to the public works director about that, so it needs to be thinned out.
You mean in the impoundment though, right? The actual aquatic.
Yeah, the aquatic.
Oh, the aquatic?
Yeah. Like, is that,
That's really not us, that's Eagle.
They're not gonna let you.
You know.
I just see it growing and growing and growing, it's like.
Yeah,
I remember when people would take boats and it's like, you can hardly do
it's
anything.
really, I mean, that's really something that, you know, the city doesn't really deal with, the city doesn't deal with the waterways, that's the state.
And even though it's an artificial pond, it's treated like natural floodplain, so it's like secret.
Has there ever been, I know that, I think the school, we opened the floodgates, we went through and cleaned up the trash years back. Is that, I mean,
In the river or in the, I mean,
yeah,
that could be, I mean, that I don't know, I mean, I'm sure the community
We
could.
shut it down up here at the other hydro dam, opened these up wide open. We could walk across.
Really?
There was a stream in the middle, but we found boat motors and refrigerators. I believe there was guns found, there was all kinds of stuff there.
Really?
Mystery solved.
I just meant, it seems like it's getting more and more vegetation, I didn't know
Yeah.
where, yeah.
That might actually, I wouldn't even know where to start with that, but I mean, it doesn't sound like a bad idea.
I mean,
To do it
more
more cleanup.
people
Yeah.
are kayaking and
Yeah.
and that water, it's a beautiful resource to our city.
I
And it's
agree.
like, kind of want to maintain it. I didn't know if there was a plan or a.
Yeah, like I said, the waterways, or we do not handle the waterways. That being said, doesn't, you know, I can talk to the public works director to see if there's a process for that.
They used to do it in the Grand River, right at Riverside Park, I know, they, like you said, they would haul up, you know, tires and all kinds of different stuff. So it's, obviously, it's something that could be done
Yeah, that was,
somehow.
what, 18 years ago?
It was a long time ago.
It was a long
Yeah, we
time
used to-
ago,
We used to have a pond that was part of the Shiawassee River where I worked before, and it would build up with milfoil every year. It just turned in, the lake turned green, and vegetation grow out of it. So we would have a harvester come twice a summer. They would come in and, but we had to get special permits from Eagle. The city subsidized that. I don't know how that works with rivers. It wasn't a river, but the city would go in and harvest that every year. But that's a little bit different than this. But that being said, I mean, that's something I could talk to the Public Works Director about, see if there's something we could do. Because I'll be honest, I don't even know where to start with on that.
Even with the Corps of Engineers, I would guess would be the ones who would.
You still want to keep water flow.
Yeah.
And it's obstructing more and more water flow.
No, right, no.
You could play with some words there.
I don't disagree with you.
Lynn?
I'm good.
I'm good. It's nice to have everybody back, and please have a good summer, and we'll see you next month.
See you in 2 weeks.
Yeah, or 2 weeks, that's true. We have a special meeting 2 weeks from tonight on,
There's a proposed drive-through restaurant facility
the-
next to the Jimmy John's.
the Culvers.
Yeah, it's the church. Yeah, same lot at the corner of the church and thing. Yep.
So we will see you in a couple of weeks.
I need you back, yeah.
Yeah. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
I'll motion to adjourn.
And a support?
Or
All in favor? Say aye.
I
We stand adjourned. Thank you.